Now, you've grown up with Disney Channel, and one of the hottest shows on Disney Channel at the moment is Kiff. What you may not know is that the creators of Kiff are actually South African. And I've got the showrunner, Nic Small, here. Nic, thanks so much for joining.
Hey, thanks, Jacobus. That was a nice intro. Thank you.
Listen, before we jump into how you are changing the world, let's just jump into...
Yeah.
So Nic has had an illustrious career in the creative arts, and he's got so many talents that he's actually still offering on a large scale. Nic, I'd love to hear your journey. How did you decide, listen, I'm going to jump into this creative media space and just see how it plays out? It's always interesting to see how parents react when you tell them you are going to do that. Maybe you had supportive parents, because mine was super confused, like, I hope that he has a future in this industry.
Yes.
So I'd love to hear your story.
You know, my folks have always been very supportive. You know, if my brother and I were, into music, they were like, let's help you out, and they've supported us. We played in bands in high school together. And, even back in high school, I was always drawing in my textbooks. And I really probably shouldn't have. But I mean, I'm glad I did. It was, I would make little flip books, and I didn't even realize I was animating. You draw a little stick man on a skateboard on the one page and the next page. And
so you were that guy, because there's always this one guy before you, then you get the textbook, then you're like,
exactly.
Yeah.
You find a little treasure in the bottom corner.
Yes.
Yeah. When sort of it came to choosing what to study, I was quite interested in animation at the time. There was a lot of 3D animation. I was always into 2D. I grew up loving The Simpsons, and obviously Animaniacs and Tiny Toons and Gummy Bears and all of that. And I actually ended up going to Cape Tech to study graphic design, and that was really great. You get a real broad kind of sense of what is out there. You do photography, illustration, all of it. Typography. You learn to actually write the letters. So I didn't really know where I was going to land up, but I kind of went straight from there into an animation job, and I kind of only then really started my animation journey.
Oh, wow.
And I learned, on the job, which is actually really where you learn the most. You study and you get a certain type of education, and then you go and you work, and you're like, okay, now I'm learning stuff, because you're sitting next to somebody and you're constantly picking up things. I was there, in that industry for a while, in that studio, and I ended up going into advertising from that. And a lot of animators and illustrators, end up in advertising, because there's lots of, you get to animate. And I was, I think it was probably about 15 years, roughly, and including that first bit of animation. And I always loved animation. I always loved animating. But you sort of, you do what you can. You take the jobs that you can, and I learned a lot from working in advertising. I learned about editing, and you do quite a variety of different styles. You're always, a job comes in and it's they want this kind of look, and then you got to adapt. So you're always doing different stuff, and it's good. You learn different approaches.
It's almost like when you are in that setup, there are deadlines, there are certain targets that you need to reach, and for that reason, you are forcing yourself to learn those various styles as well,
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
It's harder to do it out of self-discipline, just sit in front of a computer and try something new. But if you're forced to by a client, not forced to, but you love what you do still.
It's required of you.
It's required of you. Yeah.
And I ended up directing live action Ackerman's TV commercials in the kids space. So actually everywhere from toddlers through to teens, I was doing. There was a period of time where I was directing all of those TV commercials. And everything from the casting, and people are bringing in their toddlers, and you're like, I'm so sorry, you have to do this. And so, yeah, I mean, even from that all the way through to animation, I was doing a broad amount of, different sort of disciplines. And then it was at some point, I can't even remember the exact year, but my buddy and I, when we started doing Derick and the Sunday Blues, we were like, let's just execute an idea. We've got this idea for this silly song. Let's just do it. We've never made a music video ourselves, and we tried it and was like, this is fun. Just do this again, And then that was when it was like, you talk about doing something, on your own time. That was really when I discovered the joy of creating your own thing, where you are in charge of the creative, output. You get to make the decisions, and it was like, oh, this is fun. You get to decide, and also that's when you learn. You do something and you're like, this joke, didn't land quite right. Like, what would make that better? And you get better. You get better at editing. You learn how to become more efficient, and you learn how to basically take something from the concept through to completion. And that's very that is where I think I learned the most, is because you just learn by trying. You learn by failing.
What was that creative itch that you still felt that wasn't that you needed to scratch to go beyond, I would say, your conventional 9 to 5? To execute. I mean, this was an idea that you wanted to execute on a music video, also appearing on screen this time, right? What was that? What did you feel wasn't scratched yet to go even further and start the YouTube channel?
I didn't know that there was a scratch or an itch that I needed to scratch. It was really like my buddy Gareth and I would just talk about stuff. We were like, this is funny. This is a funny idea. And there was hundreds of them. And then one day we were like, what if we just did it? And it was only then when we did it, I was like, this was fun. And then we did it purely because we were having a good time. And if you're having a good time doing anything, chances are it's going to come out, okay. At the beginning, maybe. No, yeah. And we just sort of just carried on doing that because we were having a good time.
But this YouTube video wasn't just a side hustle. It grew to, some of these videos, really thousands upon, and some even millions of views. Tell us about that journey.
Well, we continued to try things. It was just like, oh, we haven't done this. Let's try that. We haven't done this. And again, all the while just learning. And sometimes you do something that's just lands at the right time, and then, it gets picked up by some website or whatever, and then it just builds. And we would never really we would make something, put it out, and not spend too much time worrying, looking at it. Is this doing well? Is this good? We would just move on to the next thing. And that was fun. And then back then, it was a long time ago. There was it was different to today with TikTok and the way that reels are, where. So we were making music videos and stuff, and then what would happen was you get brands that would want to partner, and that was great because then it's a job, and then but you're also getting to have fun at the same time. So that was sort of that journey.
You progressed from there, and this is the big one, is you have a full show on Disney Channel. I mean, we're talking about the Disney and a South African boykie. The reason why I'm so stoked to
South
have him
African
here.
boykie is actually going to be my new show. You've heard it here first.
I mean, it's such a delight to see you operating in Los Angeles as you do. And I'd love to just also share that story, because it's often so easy to say, oh, I'm stuck in my little four walls. How can I break away from that? And and obviously the show is a big one, but there are so many other vast opportunities in this industry beyond just shows for Los Angeles. This is, to a large extent, been penultimate. So many creators dream to be able to create in such a way. I'd love to, if you could share that story of going from the channel to there.
Sure. So I mentioned that the animation studio, they're called Sunrise Productions. That was where I first started out of Cape Tech. And actually, I came full circle because they asked me to come and art direct on a job that they were doing, and I came, and that was where I met Lucy Heavens. And now Lucy Heavens is a co-creator who I created Kiff with. And she was working, she's a writer. She I think she worked for a period of time. I don't know if you remember, like Super Striker, that animated. So she worked on that, and so she had been in animation, and she had been sort of in that space for a while. And then when we met there, we got along. We sort of were talking the same language when it came to style and tone and sensibility and comedy. And when that job sort of came to a close, Lucy was like, "Do you want to put together like a pitch? Do you want to just try and do our own thing together?" I was like, "Okay, like nothing will ever happen, but it'll be fun." And I enjoyed working with her. So she was like, "Okay, well, there's a squirrel, a high energy squirrel, and her name is Donk." And that was actually the name of that was it. And that was the starting point. And actually just today I was driving my kids to school, and my son Jordan asked me, "But how do you do it? What was the thing at the beginning? What is the very thing about, when you start?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Well, it's an idea. That's the nucleus, And so Lucy was like, that's what I got. And she's got a lust for life, and she's this big personality, and she wants everyone around her to experience life like she does, And I drew a squirrel with a big light bulb head, and then we just laughed at it because it just looked silly. And then the next thing I started to draw, I was like, we need more animals. I did some more animals in a lineup, and then we were like, okay, that's a school buddy, that's her best friend, that's a teacher, this so-and-so and so. And from there, you put together a pitch deck.
Yeah.
And a pitch deck is basically, it's a bound, couple of pages. You don't want it to be too long, you don't want it to be too short. But the most important thing is it communicates your show easily, and it gives you talking points. So themes, what you want to say with your show, tone, a page with a character and their name and a small little paragraph describing that character.
Yeah.
And basically that's your pitch deck. You pitch that. And Lucy got funding from the DTI to go to Kids Screen, which that's where you can pitch, and it's all kids television, and you got the broadcasters like Disney and Netflix and all of them there, or Nickelodeon, and
wow.
And she was like, "I'm going anyways. What if I take this pitch? What if we?" And I was like, "Okay, cool. That sounds great. Like, best of luck. You never think that anything's going to come of it." And she went and she pitched it around a bunch of times, and most people were like, "Thanks for your time. Good luck with that." And there was someone at Disney who enjoyed the pitch and was like, and she laughed and she was like, "I think that let's have you show this to someone else." And Lucy came back to Cape Town, and then we pitched it again on Skype. This was before the days of Zoom.
Wow.
And then we pitched it again together from Cape Town after we tweaked it a little. And there was somebody else, a new person in the room, a couple of other people, and we pitched it, I think, another time after that. And then in that meeting, they said, "I think we'd like to go into development." And Lucy and I, we were in the offices nearby Dyer's Tavern there in town, and we went afterwards to Dyer's, and we're like, "Was that a big thing that just happened?" And I was like, "I don't know." And she's like, I think it was a big thing. I'm like, "Is it?" "I think it is." And we're like,
"What?"
Yeah. And basically you go into development, there's a bit of funding, but I was still working at the same time.
Yeah,
There was no ways like it's not like a time to just do that.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
like still freelancing at the same time. And they basically have some money to pay you to continue to develop it further,
Wow.
to expand. And that development stage can be anywhere from 4 years to 10 years. Some projects are in development for long. Ours was about 4 years at the most, which is considered relatively short. And in that time, you tweak, and you pitch it again. And every time you pitch it, there's a new person in the room. It's like a video game. There's a new boss, and you pitch it. And then, you get some notes and you make some tweaks. And we even went out to LA to pitch in person for one of the pitches. And, we were like, should we go? Okay. And then we were like, but it's expensive. And we went on our own dime and we pitched it. And then we came back and we were like, I don't know if that went well. And then, changing it again. And then we went out a second time to pitch it again. And
again in LA?
Yeah, again, another boss in the room. And I mean, long story short, that kind of went through COVID times. And then when COVID was sort of coming to a close and Omicron was doing its thing. It was Omicroning hard, and South Africa had a travel ban on it. And around then, we actually got the green light. They told us we're going into production.
Wow.
That's all you. That's what you get to make your show, and there's no guarantee when you're in that development stage that your show is going to get a green light. So, and that was when we officially started production on the show, and we worked from Cape Town for about 6 months before, and then when the travel ban was lifted, we moved over to the States.